Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Life Stories Unscripted podcast. I'm your host Viviane and I'm a doula, breastfeeding specialist, and a mama coach. And I talk about everything related to preconception, pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and beyond. So if you're a parent or you're trying to be one, this is the podcast for you, so stay tuned. Today, our guest is Jennifer Hensley from Texas, who has two amazing birth stories she's going to share with us today, one of which was at a birth center and one was a home birth. So I'm really, really excited to see what her experience was. Jennifer is also a childbirth educator, and we're going to talk about what led her to become one in the first place. If you enjoy this podcast, please hit the subscribe button so me and you can share the awareness together. This podcast is sponsored by Perfecta Placenta, located in Beverly Hills, which is a placenta preserving company. So if you would like your miracle organ to be preserved and get two amazing gifts in the form of a stretch mark cream and a diaper bag, don't forget to use my promo code Doula Viviane. And for more information, I'll be happy to chat. You can reach me either LinkedIn or Facebook under my own name, Viviane Schima, or via my email address, which is birthwithviviane@gmail.com. I'll be happy to hear from you. That's it for now from me, so let's jump into Jennifer's story. Enjoy. Hi, Jennifer. Thank you for being here today. How are you?
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I'm very excited to hear about your birth stories. I'm so excited. So tell us, please. I briefly mentioned in the intro that you had two births. One was at a birth center and one was a home birth. And also a childbirth educator, and we're going to talk about what led you to become one. So why don't we start with your birth experience?
Okay. Funny enough, with both births, I went into labor Friday night and they were born Saturday night.
Wow.
And my husband and my mother were present at both, and that is kind of where the similarities end. And with my son was my first birth. I thought I made all of the right choices and decisions that would lead me to have a beautiful birth experience. So I chose a midwife, and I chose to give birth out of hospital, so at a birth center. I took a birthing from within, which is there are many different kinds of birth classes, and birthing from within is very natural minded. They talk about feelings. And so I took that class. I've read so many books. I would say around 6 to 10 books I read. And I was not prepared. I was not prepared. And, with all the feelings talk, I wasn't truly prepared for how labor would feel and how to overcome the pain of labor, and sometimes how things can happen during labor. And I wasn't prepared for the group B strep. That's, a test. It usually happens 36, 37 weeks gestation. And I tested positive, and I didn't know that it was coming up. And furthermore, I didn't know that I could test negative and what it meant if I tested positive. I didn't know there was a protocol that I could follow to make sure that I was negative. And so during labor, I had to receive IV antibiotics, and I am allergic to penicillin, so I had to have a very strong antibiotic. So in addition to being in labor and having the pain of labor, I also had the discomfort of extreme itching. My scalp was on fire. So that was unpleasant. Another difference between my births, because with my second, I found out there was a protocol, and I tested negative, and I wasn't hooked up to anything. So that was nice. So this birth center was great, and I'm glad we gave birth there. My midwife, however, she had never delivered a patient there. And so she got another midwife. She had privileges at this birth center, but she was used to hospital births. And so I had two midwives because one had delivered clients at this birth center.
Mhm.
So it was nice having these two midwives. I had more support, more expertise. And even the midwives that owned the birth center, they came. So at one point, I think I had four midwives present. And also these two birth assistants, usually there's only one birth assistant, but one birth assistant was finishing up her training. So it was being overseen by the other birth assistant. So I had two midwives and two birth assistants. And I also made the very wise decision, good choice, of hiring a doula, because doulas are amazing.
Yeah.
And to not use a doula, to not be given the opportunity to use a doula when they provide so much support and pain relief and positivity, it should be criminal to deny the use of a doula, because she was amazing. I had only met her one time because I think I realized, oh, I did not read the right books. I did not take the right birth class. I don't think I have the right midwife.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, we have to get a doula. And so we hired her very late, I would say close to 37, 38 weeks. So I only met her one time. And even though there wasn't necessarily enough time to build that rapport, that relationship, she was this presence that was so crucial in so many important parts of my labor. And of course, I think a lot of what happens in American hospitals with doulas, they are advocates and they try to steer the rest of the care team toward the wishes of the mother. But with her, she was providing a lot of support to my husband, because it was, his first birth experience as well. And so, she told him the things to say to me, and that was really great. So, during transition, of course, when you get to that wall and you can't, you say, I can't. She said, but you are doing it. And that was exactly what I needed to hear. But then I quickly forgot that she'd said that because transition. And then my husband, having heard her say it, he said it to me. And because, doulas are amazing, but in the end, who loves you more? Your birth partner, probably. And so hearing him say that was just what I needed to get over, over that hill and to climb the mountain that is transition and birth. So I ended up, thank goodness, giving birth at the birth center because my son was occiput posterior, sunny side up. And it was a very difficult, long labor. And I know that those two midwives were in the hallway, maybe discussing transferring me. And my doula saw what was happening. And she said, hey, don't you have a chiropractor? And so they got my phone, and my chiropractor had said, you can call me and I can come, during labor. And so it was my doula that said, hey, let's do that. And then it was my husband that called and said, hey, she's in labor. Please come. He's not turning. And it was, I think, 9 p.m. on a Saturday night. And she came and she adjusted me, and I felt him turn within me. And then I started pushing. One thing I didn't like was I was told that no, I needed to stay in that position, and I was basically on my back. And I said, I want to switch positions, and I was told no by the midwives. And then
how did that make you feel?
I felt a loss of control. I felt powerless. And that is exactly how you do not want to feel. You should feel powerful during your birth. And another thing is, once I was in pushing phase, I was almost yelled at to push instead of following my body's own urges. So I don't think anybody knew exactly when I was feeling a contraction, you know. Maybe they could tell by my face. I'm very expressive.
But no one was really guiding you, right? Like the midwives were not doing the guidance that you maybe hoped for.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that was something. You don't know what you don't know, and I didn't know that I did not want the usual, sitcom or movie experience of being, guided, being yelled at, push. I didn't realize how it would feel, and I guess being me, which, as you know, I was already late to this interview. I get yelled at a lot, so it really it kind of put me back in this position of like I'm being scolded for, for not doing things on somebody else's time schedule. And so babies come on their own schedule.
Exactly.
Babies come
I get that a
on
lot.
their
Only one. I hear from moms like the doctor was blaming me for missing his dessert because I was in labor. he made me feel so bad, and I'm like, well, babies come when they come. They don't choose the time, and
exactly.
we're there when the baby's ready, and we're there for you, right? I mean, there is no time schedule when it comes to birth.
Yes. Yes. And my son's birth was 24 hours from first contraction to birth. And I feel like I was being hurried, definitely. I think it was 10:38 p.m. I was pushing wrong. That's another thing. And so I was pushing for like 45 minutes. Most of that was wrong. And I told everyone that after going through transition, pushing was a relief. And then whenever you see the difference between contractions, it's like, oh yes, pushing is a relief, because those contractions they're like waves instead of spikes. And they're further apart. And also I had those two birth assistants. So one was pouring oil and the other was doing the stretching, the perineum stretching. So I did not feel the ring of fire with my son. So at least I had that. And I only had some minor abrasions. So I gave birth vaginally without too many complications, except I did hemorrhage a bit. And of course, having had a birth whenever I entered into my second pregnancy, they took that into account. And so because of my first birth, I had that beautiful second birth, but even so, even as slightly traumatic as my first birth was, it was still beautiful. And I still didn't have to give up too much of my control, I suppose.
So when did you realize that this is not probably how it should have gone? This is not what how it should be? When was the time that you realized this and you decided to educate yourself more and learn about the protocol and stood your ground on a home birth despite the minor complications you had that they saw as a too big of a complication for you to have a home birth in the first place?
So I was actually never told. I was told that I was a good candidate for a home birth by my first midwife with my son. But when I realized that it could have gone better, it was probably in that moment when I was told no, I mean, of course, I didn't realize it until later because all thought processes were get this baby out.
Right.
But
One thing
uh,
at a time.
yeah, but I really did, and I I did suffer from a postpartum anxiety more so than depression. So that was another barrier to to using all of my brain energy toward uh, informing myself of a better way. But I had watched The Business of Being Born, which is a fantastic documentary I absolutely love, and I recommend to all of my clients, even if they aren't having a home birth or out of hospital birth. Um, None yet have decided to switch from a hospital birth to out of hospital birth because of watching that, but they wanted to. But they had, other risk factors and barriers. Um, but I would say maybe a year postpartum is when I returned to work. And I'm so, so thankful I had all of that time with my son to bond with my son, to get through the challenges of breastfeeding, because even though my mother was a certified lactation consultant, um, she would she would latch him, but never actually show me how to latch him. And so every time she would help me latch, it was a good latch. But then he had like this shallow latch, and it was very, very painful. But finally, we figured each other out, because that's what it is in the beginning, is you're both figuring it out. So but it was 6 weeks of misery. But I powered through it, and then we had this beautiful, bonding through breastfeeding, beautiful relationship. And I ended up breastfeeding 14 months, I believe, with my son. Even after I returned to work, I pumped. Pumping is no fun. So major uh, applause to exclusive pumping moms, or moms that pump for longer than a few months, because it was only a few months really for me. He was exclusively breastfed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is saying that, oh well, breastfeeding, breast milk is free, breastfeeding is free, that's not taking into account all of the time that we put into it.
It's, heating up a bottle or preparing powdered milk in a bottle, it's easier than actually breastfeeding, because breastfeeding is work, and you learn to breastfeed by breastfeeding, and so does the baby. And it's wonderful, though, the relationship, how it works, that you eventually, like you said, you had a harder time in the beginning, but you eventually figured yourself out. You helped each other out, because your baby listens to you, you listen to your baby. So I'm very
Yeah.
happy to hear this, that it's hard to push through when you feel alone, when you feel, what am I doing wrong? And it seems
Yeah.
like there is no right answer. So that's incredible. That's incredibly powerful.
Support is so important. At no point did my husband say, maybe maybe we should just try formula, maybe you should just give up. Like, that was never in his mouth. It was never like, maybe this is too hard. He was always like, you are doing such an amazing job, this is so hard, and you're doing great. And that was enough. That was enough. But I also, given that my mom was a lactation consultant, I had that over my head. I had that added pressure. Like, well, if I can't do it as, the daughter of a lactation consultant, that's, yeah. And we tried so many things, and she did help me, of course, a lot. Having a lactation consultant on call and can just come and help me whenever, that was nice.
Yes, but I mean, it's still your mom. There's a different type of relationship going on top of the lactation support for you. So, and it's all right. And like you said, some moms figure it out, and some need more help. Some babies need more help, but usually with time, the baby grows, the mouth grows, the tongue grows a little bit, so they're able to know a little bit better. They're also able to tell you a bit better, even though they don't talk, right?
Yes.
But you learn, this is a hungry cry, this is a sleepy cry.
Yes.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Having the support from your loved ones, I think that is the key. That is the secret to you being able to push through, because if you don't get it, it's the doubt, it's the guilt, it's the shame. It's it's being a mother, and it's wonderful, but you can go down a rabbit hole, obviously.
Yes.
So
I look back and just as with transition, I fought, I clawed my way to success. So I look back and I feel empowered. Exactly.
You should be. I mean, birth should be empowering. Birth should be your story, and you should have the pen. You should be able to write it. But I know
I love that. I love that. That's so good.
I mean, it's true, right? If you think about it.
Yeah.
But it's sad that the sad part to that is that, like you said, sometimes they want to take the pen away from you and write it how they want it to be, because they already missed 2 desserts because you were in labor for 24 hours. So how many desserts are they going to miss? Well, that's up to them, right?
Yeah.
So
it's I my story could have gone very differently. And I could see it. I could see it in their faces in the hallway as they were talking. What would that have looked like for me in the hospital? So, yeah. And I didn't say, so in addition to my mother being an IBCLC, she was a mother baby nurse, and she also worked labor and delivery. So really, I'm second generation birth worker. But when I told my mother that I didn't want to give birth in the hospital, she was I think she was emotional, and she was, she had things to say about that. Because that's where you have babies. That's where she saw women delivering babies. So there's a mosquito, sorry. Texas. So her disapproval and her fear and concern, and seeing her see this birth in a birth center, I think was also empowering. And that was one of the coolest things.
So how did she react when you announced you're going to have a home birth? What was the reaction?
2 words came out of her mouth. Absolutely not.
Wow. Well, I mean, wow. I mean, to go, through that is a whole different type of, having to defend yourself and your decision on the home birth. Because if you have people actively trying to prevent you from doing that because of their own experience or of their, expertise, it's hard, right? You start questioning, am I doing the right thing? Right?
Yeah.
So tell us, how was your home birth?
Oh gosh. It's so, once again, Friday night, and my daughter was born on her due date. Wow. So it's not unheard of, but it is rare.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I could tell, I had those pre-labor preparations, those symptoms, and mostly the nesting. It was very intense. I think that Friday during the day, I did so much cooking and cleaning. And my daughter was born on her due date. Like I said, my mother's birthday is the day after. And my mother wanted her to be born on her birthday so badly because I was born on her mother's birthday.
Oh,
So, you know, and she was born at like 11:15 p.m. And I I asked the time,
mhm.
like about to give birth, and they it's 11:14, and I look at my mom and I'm like, I'm sorry. And then out she came. And my mother, after the fact, she was like, it's because you were doing all that cooking and cleaning. You made it happen, too soon. And I was like, no, she was coming. She was coming and I felt it. And
That's what I wanted to ask
so
you. Could you feel it while you were nesting, while you were cooking and cleaning and just wanting to stay home? Could you feel something inside you that maybe she's telling you she's gonna come very, very soon?
yeah,
Yeah.
I really, really did. We did, you are connected,
Mhm.
and your baby tells you through their hormones
Absolutely.
that they're ready. And there is just something different. There's something different in the way that she was moving. um it was a feeling. It was a feeling of get ready.
Yeah.
And it being a home birth, I was like, I gotta, oh gosh, I need to clean this mess up. And I was also, oh gosh, and I'm not going to want to do, laundry after, I did like 8 loads of laundry the day of and the day before, like combined. And because I was still doing chores throughout labor, I was able to, in both labors,
Mhm.
early labor, I was able to sleep through, since I went into labor that night. And I was actually, it wasn't the best sleep, but I was able to, to get some rest. And when I woke up with my son, because, home birth, I woke up with my son and we watched cartoons together. And, I explained what was going on. I said, we're going to have your baby sister. Wording is very important. We never said the new baby with him. We always said, your baby sister. So that he was excited. And I let my mom, who was staying with us, I let my mom and my husband sleep in because I knew I was going to need them. I needed them to get their rest. I would need them later. And they slept in very late. And so my labor partner was my son, who
Oh,
was, almost 4 at that time. And, I was doing laundry. And so every so often I'd be like, oh, and he would come and he would like pat my back. And that was a really good bonding time. It was so important to have that last those last precious moments of him being an only child. And I look back on that and I'm so glad, because if it had been, a hospital birth, maybe I
mhm.
wouldn't have gotten that extra time with him. I'd be running around trying to pack a hospital bag, or we'd be figuring out where's he going to go. And he did end up going to like a daycare, like a drop-in daycare. um, but he had to come home when the daycare closed, and I was still in labor. And I remember I was probably, active labor transition, and I was asking, where's my baby? Where's Arthur?
Mhm.
And they're like, he's upstairs asleep. And you find that in home births, a lot of times the women, they don't go into labor until their other babies are asleep.
Right.
They're taken care of. And that very much happened. But we actually did wake him up so he could meet his little sister. But this labor was actually 30 hours, which is funny because it's supposed to be shorter with the
Further,
second time,
usually, right? But you know,
usually.
no mom is the same, no baby is the same. So who knows?
Like,
We just don't know.
exactly.
But just
Yeah.
tell me, please, I'm going to go back to when you decided to get a doula. Was that an instinct, or what was the drive within you? Because you said you got her pretty late, right? So
Yeah.
did you feel something that you might need her?
Yeah. I felt fear. I was scared. I was scared that even though I made all of these choices, that I wasn't prepared. And I hadn't read the right books. And so I started reading the right books, and it was too late. I would never get through it by the time I delivered, because it was like, you know, because I was still working. I worked until I was 39 weeks. And we were scared. We were scared. Not with fear. I think we as a species, we make many decisions based off of fear.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, fear is not necessarily a bad thing. I believe that fear is here to help you. Fear
Yeah.
is your body telling you something and listening, let me help you, right? But we
Yes.
often see fear as this antagonist, as this enemy who wants to destroy us, when in fact it's the actual opposite, right? But I completely understand that you haven't reading so many books, and then you find out they're not the right books. But I do believe you read the right books. I just believe that the support wasn't there until you met your doula, or it wasn't
Yeah.
profound. It wasn't the support that you needed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She put me in positions to to help him turn. He was very stubborn, still is, very um and so I, she put me into forward leaning inversion. Basically I was doing handstands in labor. Yeah, she had me do the miles circuit.
Mhm.
um she had me on the peanut ball, and so I was actually being adjusted while on the peanut ball. So it maybe is like, okay, was it the peanut ball? Was it the adjustment? Was it the combination
Mhm.
that got him into the right position? But she was the driving force in making that happen.
And
So
I believe it was also you calming down,
yeah,
you maybe realizing it's okay. She's here, I'm here,
look at all these people.
my partner
Yeah,
is here. And those are the people who matter, right? So, and I think that also helps your baby, move. And it's
yeah,
things in between, heaven and earth that we just don't know that's going on, with babies and moms.
yeah. There
It's
were
wonderful.
so many people present at my first birth. And there was the two midwives plus the two birth assistants and my mom. So all of those people like experienced with birth, plus the doula, and then my husband, and then my chiropractor, and sometimes like another midwife or two. And then even my sister showed up for just a little bit of time. She I think she came maybe during transition, and I told her, I was like, you have to go before this next contraction. I think she needed to give something to my mom, or just visit me, but it was not the right time to visit me. And I think that experience of seeing me in so much pain during transition um, really affected her. She does not have children.
Right. And again,
Yeah,
it's
but
your story, and you have the full right to say not now. Um,
yeah,
come back in 10 minutes, but and you have the full right to say that. So I'm very happy
yeah,
that I love hearing these stories of empowerment, and even more going from disempowerment to empowerment and knowing your rights, having realistic expectations.
yes, yes,
I think that's
right.
very important.
Like there are patients' rights. We have all kinds of rights. We have citizens' rights and human rights, civil rights, and then there are patients' rights. But even going further, there are the rights of childbearing women. So it's like there are the typical patients, and then there are the women giving birth. And And so I always go over those, with my clients. And I did feel so empowered, and I felt every single one, like all of those rights were upheld in my home birth. Giving birth in the position of my choosing. I was everywhere. I'm my eyes are scanning my home. And she was born like 10 steps that way. And it was great, moving around and having full range of my home and my backyard. My having my cat here. My cat was another labor partner.
And feeling the comfort, knowing that this is your own home and you can do whatever you feel like. There's no one to tell you you can't do that or you have to be on your back. I love it.
Yes. Yeah. And I gave birth upright. It's called a cub chair, CUB, comfortable upright birth. It's like this U-shaped blow up chair, which very much reminded me of a chair that I had in the 90s. But it's a U, and so there was this space, for the baby to be born through that space. And I did not push. I do not remember pushing. I was that comfortable.
I said that you've become a childbirth educator, but I would be interested, what led you to become one?
Yeah. So before, we have to backtrack a little. Before I became a childbirth educator, I was already an educator. So I was a public high school French teacher for 9 years before I quit to have my daughter, because I realized that I wanted more time. I wanted more time with my babies when they were so small. But also in school, we had pregnant students, pregnant high school students. Some of them were my students. And I wanted to stop teaching French and tell them everything they needed to know. Okay, well, you need to make sure that, okay, read about this. Okay, delayed cord clamping. You need to talk, here's how to succeed in breastfeeding. Hire a doula. Just so many things. I was so, so impassioned when talking about birth. And of course, I still love French, and I still love teaching French. I'm teaching my kids French, and I tutor a little boy. But really, like, my true passion for teaching has switched subjects. And so I guess it was, and it was a few years, because I needed to, to get past the newborn and infant stage. So I think my daughter was 2, maybe 2.5, whenever I started saying, okay, yeah, this is what I want to do. Because I kept thinking, well, I need to think about going back to work soon. And I just didn't feel it. Either with that, that fire wasn't there. But every time I spoke about, their births and spoke to other mothers, I just lit up, this fire. And so I chose Lamaze. I absolutely love Lamaze. Got my Lamaze seal there. And
there you go.
every step of the way, Lamaze has been amazing. And I love their advocacy. I love how hard it was. It was, I read, so I feel like I maybe read as much in an entire semester or even 2 semesters of college, taking all of those courses, as I did in studying for my Lamaze exam, which was very difficult. And afterward, I thought, maybe I should just become a midwife. That was so hard. And but it has served me well. And also my 9 years of teaching also served me very well as an educator, because I already had that education background. I already knew how to frame a lesson and how to check for understanding and differentiate instruction. So I love what I do. I love that I can make a difference. And also, I have had 5 former students as my clients. So that has been
Wow.
truly just I mean, it's indescribable. I can't find the words, because to be their mentor then, and then to then get to watch them grow up and become mothers themselves, and still be their mentor, but also their friend, because they like have a built-in mom friend after they take my class. So,
Right. First,
and
I'm gonna teach you French, then I'm gonna teach you how to birth a baby.
yes.
And it's wonderful because having all that background, like you said, you have, giving birth is such an intimate event, such an intimate milestone, and you really have to be born to do that. You have to be born a doula. You have to be, or I at least I believe that, to have
Yeah.
connection, to know how to get a point across, while being caring and kind and empathetic and knowing how to listen. So
Yes.
that's wonderful.
Yeah. Eventually, in childbirth educators, I think there is confusion on what we do. They're like, so you're a doula? I'm like, no, I want to be a doula. I would love to be a doula. Um, but I cannot be there at the hospital or birth center with you in that capacity. I teach like in my comfort measures and in that class session in my course. I do teach a lot of strategies that doulas use, but I teach them to the birth partners if they do make that decision not to hire a doula, not the wisest decision.
I do love one thing.
Yes. Yeah, and with my second birth, I hired a birth photographer, and she needs to be a doula also. So it's like I had a birth photographer slash doula, and then my husband, having gone through that first birth, I mean, he was amazing. Like, even my midwife and my birth assistant, they were really in awe of him and how amazing he was as my birth partner. Yeah, he was like my second doula. So
Wonderful.
yeah. But I end up having to explain, okay, I'm not a doula. Please come to me before, please come to me after birth. And I will tell you how to prepare. I will prepare you for birth. I will tell you what it's like. I will help you with nutrition and answer any of those questions, and then after, like I also work with newborns and newborn care. So it's
So exciting. Well, Jennifer, tell us where people can reach you. I mean, you're doing such amazing work. I'm sure that everyone who's watching would love to know more.
Thank you. Thanks. So I don't know if you can see this. So that is actually my logo, done by a beautiful watercolor artist in Seattle. So Artio, ARTIO, birthcare.com, but that is the name of my business. However, in January of this year, I was on Facebook, which is how I found you as well. I was on Facebook, and one of my birth worker pages, and there was a nonprofit saying they're hiring birth workers and they needed childbirth educators and doulas, lactation consultants. And so I was very intrigued, because this whole time I've never wanted cost or lack of funds, financial difficulty to be a barrier to get this education, and I went so far as to say, okay, just pay me what you can. But then that was making me suffer as well. So this nonprofit has been so amazing. It's called Children's Connections, Inc. They are based in Texas. So at this time, only residents of Texas can get these services for free. So 100% of my clients right now are using this because there's no income requirement or anything. Do you live in Texas? Are you pregnant or parenting? Those are the only requirements. And so I get to provide my services for free. And I think because I'm still being paid by them, I don't feel like, okay, well, I need to wrap this up because, I'm not being paid for these, 2 extra hours that I'm, going through and repeating things. And so it's been absolutely amazing. So I am still RTO Birth Care, but I am operating as an independent contractor under Children's Connections Incorporated. So amazing organization. Doulas are actually providing their services for free. So previously, Medicaid clients who, didn't have, the money for childbirth education and doula services now get both of these for free. And also lactation consultants, which a lot of times insurance doesn't cover. And, there is La Leche League. There are free services, but this organization combines all of the free services. So in one spot, oh, you need this? Okay, here's this person. And they assign the different contractors to help.
That's wonderful. I think this is very much overdue, this type of service, because births in America, are very expensive. And if there's any complication, the price just skyrockets, and it keeps skyrocketing. And we can prevent this, we can physically prevent this by getting the people the support they need to minimize everything, to almost eliminate. So the cost of the birth, if they decide to birth their baby at a hospital or at a birthing center, to be as low as possible. But
yeah,
we have to make it affordable. We have to make it a thing. We have to normalize it. So I think we're still a long way to go.
yes.
But it's wonderful to see this progress, this little milestones, that we're going ahead. It's wonderful.
I'm doing what I can within my community, and because it is all of Texas, I do have clients outside of my community. I'm in, Austin and Houston, and so I do provide, virtual services, and I can provide virtual services to people that are out of state. So one of my former students, who was also my client, she lived in Oklahoma. And so we did virtual, but then she still visited family that still lived here. And so we got to do some in-person things too. So
yeah. Can people reach you via Facebook too, or
yes,
address?
Yeah. So I have a Facebook and Instagram at RTO Birth Care for both. And then rtobirthcare.com has the links for both as well. And then rtobirthcare@gmail.com. Email me and chat.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for today, Jennifer. I had such a wonderful time with you, and I really hope that this will help at least one person to gain more clarity and, going from disempowerment to empowerment, because that's what counts, right?
Yeah, it was so lovely speaking with you as well.
Thank you. And that's it. We're at the end of another amazing episode. Thank you everyone for watching. If you enjoyed this episode just as much as I did, please hit the subscribe button now so me and you can spread the word together. If you're a mama, a coach, a spiritual healer, or you know about someone who has a story and they would like to share it with me and the rest of the world, don't hesitate and reach me either via Facebook or LinkedIn, where I can be found under my own name, Viviane Schima, or via my email address, which is birthwithviviane@gmail.com. That is it for me from now. Bye.